In a storm of chance, a simple act of kindness leads to a life-altering twist. An elderly woman reveals a secret that will change everything. But as hearts collide and worlds collide, will love be enough to overcome the impossible? If you are new here, then please subscribe this channel and show thumbs up by liking the video. Now let's move to this wonderful story. Emma Parker stood behind the checkout counter, her hands trembling slightly as she scanned the last item for a customer, who barely acknowledged her presence. It had been another long double shift, the third one this week, and her body ached from the hours of standing. The soft hum of the grocery store felt distant as she counted the minutes until her shift would finally end. The worn-out soles of her shoes had long stopped providing any comfort, but she pushed through. Life as a cashier wasn't easy, but it was the only way she could pay the bills, especially now after her mother's passing. Every penny she earned went towards paying off the enormous medical bills left behind after her mother's long battle with illness. The thought of her mother still lingered in the back of Emma's mind, but she forced herself to focus on the task at hand. It wasn't much, but at least it was something that allowed her to survive. As the final beep echoed through the store, Emma sighed with relief. The heavy weight of her exhaustion seemed to lift just slightly as she grabbed her worn jacket from the back of the counter. Pulling it tightly around her shoulders, she headed for the door. The rain outside had started to fall in thick, heavy sheets, and the storm was only getting worse. The gusts of wind lashed against the windows as she stepped out into the cold, the frigid rain soaking through her jacket almost immediately. She squinted against the rain, hoping to make it to the bus stop without getting drenched. The last thing she wanted was to catch a cold that would keep her from working. The streets were nearly empty, save for the occasional car that splashed through puddles, and the distant rumble of thunder filled the air, making the night feel even darker. As she walked down the sidewalk, something caught her eye. A figure in the distance standing by the side of the road. At first, Emma thought it was just another person trying to find shelter from the storm, but as she got closer, she realized it was an elderly woman, her frail body struggling to keep balance. The woman's hands gripped a cane tightly, but she seemed disoriented, squinting at the oncoming traffic as if trying to decide which way to go. Emma's heart skipped a beat. Without thinking twice, she rushed towards the woman, splashing through the puddles. "Ma'am, are you okay?" Emma called out, her voice filled with concern as she approached. The woman looked up at her, her face pale and lined with age, her eyes wide with confusion. I'm lost," the woman stammered, her voice shaky. "I can't find my way home." Emma's heart ached for her. Despite her own exhaustion, she didn't hesitate. "Let me help you," Emma said gently, taking the woman's arm to steady her. "We'll find you a way home." Together they slowly made their way to a nearby awning, seeking shelter from the heavy downpour. The woman's hands trembled as she spoke, recounting how she had forgotten her address but could still remember the name of her neighborhood. Emma listened carefully, her mind working quickly. She didn't have much money to spare, but she couldn't just leave the woman stranded. "Don't worry, we'll get you home," Emma reassured her, her voice warm despite the cold that clung to her clothes. "I'll call a cab." Using her last few dollars, Emma dialed the number for a local taxi service. The rain continued to pour, but for a moment everything else faded. All that mattered was helping this woman. Soon enough, a cab pulled up and the driver, seeing the situation, offered them a ride without hesitation. Emma helped the woman into the back seat, ensuring she was comfortable before climbing in herself. The drive through the storm felt endless, but finally, the taxi slowed to a stop. As the car came to a halt, Emma looked up only to find herself staring at an enormous mansion. The driveway stretched on, lined with sleek luxury cars, and the pristine gardens seemed to shimmer even in the rain. Emma's mouth went dry, her heart racing with disbelief. The elderly woman smiled softly, her expression one of gratitude. "Thank you, my dear," she said, her voice shaky but sincere. "You've been so kind to me. Please come inside for some tea." Emma hesitated. She had never been inside a house like this, and she certainly didn't feel like she belonged. But the kindness in the woman's eyes was enough to convince her to follow. After all, it had been a long night, and maybe a warm cup of tea would help ease the tension in her tired muscles. As she stepped inside, Emma couldn't help but feel like she had just crossed into another world, a world of wealth and luxury she had never known. She followed the woman down a long, elegant hallway and into a sitting room filled with rich furniture and paintings that looked like they belonged in a gallery. The whole place was a far cry from the cramped apartment Emma called home. "Come, sit down," the woman said, leading her to a plush chair by the fire. "You've done so much for me tonight, I want to show my gratitude." Emma sat down, still feeling out of place, but she couldn't deny the warmth that surrounded her. As the woman bustled about preparing tea, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that this simple act of kindness was about to change her life forever. Little did she know, the rainstorm had brought her more than just a cold, damp night. It had brought her face to face with an unexpected future, one that she never could have predicted. Emma woke the next morning to the sound of birds chirping outside, the window and the comforting smell of freshly brewed coffee. For a moment she had forgotten where she was. Her eyes fluttered open and she took in the unfamiliar but luxurious surroundings. The soft plush bed and the delicate morning light streaming through the curtains felt like a far cry from the cramped apartment she was used to. She blinked, trying to process the events of the previous night. Had it all been a dream? Slowly she pushed herself out of bed, her legs still sore from the long shifts at the grocery store. She stretched and wrapped the soft robe she had been given around her body. Everything in this house, from the grandiose furniture to the thick carpets beneath her feet, seemed so out of place compared to the life she had known. It was almost as if she had stepped into a different world. Emma walked downstairs and the sound of laughter reached her ears. She followed the noise, finding herself in a large, elegant dining room. There Evelyn, the elderly woman she had helped the night before, was sitting at the table, a bright smile on her face as she sipped her tea. "Good morning, dear," she greeted Emma warmly. "I hope you slept well." Emma smiled awkwardly, still feeling like an outsider in this luxurious mansion. "Yes, thank you. I never imagined I'd wake up in a place like this." "You've had a long night," Evelyn said, her eyes twinkling with kindness. "After all the kindness you've shown me, this is the least I could do." Emma's heart swelled with gratitude. She had come here to help a stranger, and somehow it had led her to this beautiful home, a place she never thought she'd experience. The kindness of a complete stranger had led her to this unexpected turn in her life, and she couldn't quite wrap her mind around it. As she took a seat at the table, Evelyn stood and started serving breakfast. Emma watched her, noticing how graceful and poised she was. Everything about Evelyn radiated warmth and comfort, as if this grand house was built not just with money, but with love and kindness. "Please have some breakfast," Evelyn said, her voice gentle. "You must be hungry after everything." Emma didn't know how to respond. She was indeed starving, but at the same time she felt out of place in this world of opulence, and glanced at her worn shoes and frayed sweater, feeling self-conscious in comparison to the fine china and perfectly arranged breakfast. Still, she smiled and nodded, taking a plate of fresh fruit and eggs from Evelyn. "Thank you," she said quietly, trying to shake off the feeling that she didn't belong here. "Oh, nonsense," Evelyn replied, waving her hand dismissively. "You've earned a good meal, my dear. You deserve it." Just as Emma was beginning to feel a little more at ease, the sound of footsteps echoed in the hallway, and a man entered the room. He was tall, well-dressed, and his presence immediately commanded attention. His sharp suit contrasted with the warmth of the room, and Emma couldn't help but feel a little intimidated by him. "Mom," the man said, his voice deep and businesslike. "What's all this?" Evelyn smiled up at him. "Ah, Liam. This is the young lady I told you about. Emma, the one who helped me last night." Liam looked at Emma, his expression unreadable. He gave a curt nod. "Thank you for helping my mother," he said, his tone polite but distant. Emma's heart raced. She wasn't sure what to say, feeling a bit awkward under his gaze. She nodded, in return, unsure how to respond. She wasn't used to being in the presence of someone like him, someone so poised and confident, someone who seemed to live in a completely different world than her own. "Evelyn," sensing the tension, smiled mischievously. "Emma, I've been thinking," she began, her voice playful. "You're such a kind, generous person." "And Liam," she turned to her son. "Well, he could learn a thing or two from you." Liam raised an eyebrow, clearly taken aback. "Mom, what are you suggesting?" Evelyn's eyes sparkled with mischief. "I think you two should spend more time together. In fact, I've decided you're going to marry Liam." Emma's eyes widened in shock and Liam's face turned from surprise to disbelief. "What?" they both asked in unison. Evelyn waved her hand nonchalantly. "Oh, don't be so surprised. Liam, you're always so focused on your work. You need someone like Emma in your life, someone who knows what truly matters. And Emma, my dear, you deserve someone who will take care of you. I've made up my mind." The room fell silent. Emma's heart raced and she could feel the blood rushing to her face. She didn't know what to think. Marriage? She barely knew Liam, and yet here she was, sitting in his mother's mansion, being told she was going to marry him. Liam crossed, his arms a frown creasing his forehead. "Mom, this is ridiculous. We don't even know each other." Evelyn simply smiled. "Exactly. That's why you should spend time together. Get to know each other. You never know what might happen." Emma felt a wave of confusion wash over her. This was all happening so fast. She hadn't signed up for this. She had simply come here to help an elderly woman in need, and now, here she was, being pushed into a situation she couldn't understand. "I appreciate everything you've done, for me," Emma said carefully, trying to keep her voice steady. "But I don't think I can marry your son. We don't even know each other." Evelyn's face softened and she leaned forward. "I understand, dear, but just think about it. At least give it a chance. I'm sure you'll see the good in him." Liam sighed, clearly frustrated but unwilling to argue further. "Fine," he muttered. "We'll spend time together, but that's it." As the morning continued, Emma found herself torn. She had never imagined being in a situation like this. But there was something about Evelyn's insistence and the way she had taken care of her that made Emma feel like maybe, just maybe, this unexpected hospitality was the beginning of something new. A chance at a new life, one she hadn't dared to dream about. Over the next few weeks, Emma found herself spending more time with Liam than she ever expected. At first, it had all felt like an obligation. Evelyn's insistence that they should get to know each other seemed almost like a task. But slowly, something shifted. What started as awkward moments and uncomfortable silences began to transform into genuine conversation. It wasn't easy at first. Emma, still struggling with the idea of her new reality, couldn't shake the feeling that she didn't belong here. She was just a simple girl from the neighborhood, and he was, well, Liam was everything she wasn't. The first time they spent an entire afternoon together was when Evelyn suggested they visit a local charity event. "It's for a good cause," she had said with a smile. "It'll give you both something to focus on besides work." "I don't know." Emma had hesitated. "I'm not sure how I'd fit in." "Nonsense," Evelyn had replied, her eyes twinkling with mischief. "Liam is always so busy with his work. A little charity work might be just what you need to get to know each other better." Liam had seemed just as reluctant as Emma, but eventually they both found themselves at a small community event, sorting through donations and helping organize items for families in need. Emma watched as Liam, who had always seemed so stiff and distant, began to talk to the other volunteers, offering help and even cracking a few jokes. His businesslike demeanor was still there, but there was something softer in the way he interacted with people, something she hadn't expected. "You're actually pretty good at this," Emma said as they worked side by side. "I thought you'd be all business, but you seem to know how to talk to people." Liam looked at her, a slight smile playing at the corner of his lips. "I guess I've had to learn how to balance work with other things," he replied. "But I don't exactly enjoy it." Emma raised an eyebrow. "Then why do it?" Liam shrugged. "It's complicated." They worked in silence for a moment, but Emma couldn't help but feel curious. She wanted to ask more, but it didn't feel like the right time. There was still a wall between them, but for the first time, She felt like it might not be so impossible to break down. The days that followed were filled with more shared moments. Visiting a soup kitchen together, attending a local charity auction, and even volunteering at an animal shelter. Liam, at first reluctant to be there, began to loosen up, even showing signs of enjoying himself. Emma was surprised to see how well he interacted with others, especially with the people they were helping. One evening, as they sat in a small park after a long day of volunteering, Liam spoke again. "You know, my father always said that emotions were a weakness," he confessed, staring out at the empty benches around them. "He taught me to never show anything other than strength. When I was younger, I thought that was the way to succeed. But now..." He trailed off, his voice softer than usual. Emma turned to him, surprised by his openness. She hadn't expected him to share something so personal. "What changed?" she asked quietly. Liam met her gaze, his eyes thoughtful. "You," he said simply. "You make me want to be a different person. Someone who's not just about business and work all the time. I never realized how much I was missing until I started spending time with you." Emma felt her heart flutter. She hadn't expected this. Liam was starting to open up in a way she never imagined. She smiled at him, her own heart softening. "You're not like your father," she said gently. "You have the power to be whoever you want to be." For the first time, Liam smiled, a genuine, warm smile that lit up his face. "Thanks, Emma," he said. "I guess I needed to hear that." Over the next few weeks, their connection continued to grow. What had once been a forced arrangement, an obligation set up by Evelyn, was slowly turning into something neither of them had expected. They began to understand each other on a deeper level. Liam, with all his business acumen and reserved nature, began to reveal a side of himself that was tender, caring, and full of potential. Emma, with her kind heart and simple outlook on life, began to see a different side to Liam, a side that was full of contradictions, but in a way that made him more human. Their bond deepened, but so did the challenges they faced. It wasn't all smooth sailing. Whispers began to spread among Liam's colleagues and friends. They didn't understand why he was spending so much time with a girl from such a different background. Rumors swirled, and some of his business associates started questioning his focus. The tension between his professional life and his personal life grew, and Emma could feel the weight of it. One evening, as they were walking back from another charity event, Emma noticed that Liam seemed lost in thought. His usual calm demeanor had been replaced by a look of frustration. "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice soft but filled with concern. "It's my colleagues," Liam admitted. "They don't understand. They think I'm getting distracted, that I'm wasting my time on things that don't matter." "But they don't know you like I do," Emma said firmly, stopping in her tracks and looking up at him. "They don't know what this means to you. And they certainly don't understand what you're doing for others." Liam looked at her, his eyes searching hers. He could see the sincerity in her words. "I don't want you to feel like you're in the middle of all this," he said quietly. "I'm not," Emma replied, shaking her head. "I want to be here. I want to be part of this, whatever it is. We're in this together, Liam." He smiled, his heart swelling with gratitude. "You've changed everything for me," he said softly. "I don't know where this will go, but I want to see where it takes us." Their connection had grown stronger than either of them had anticipated. As they continued to face challenges together, they realized that despite their differences, they were becoming a team, a partnership that neither of them had expected but both were willing to fight for. The road ahead wasn't going to be easy. There would be obstacles and there would be doubts. But for the first time in a long while, both Emma and Liam felt like they were on the right path. A path that, in its own way, had been carved by kindness, understanding, and an unexpected connection that neither of them could have predicted. Weeks passed, and Emma and Liam's connection continued to deepen. What had begun as a forced arrangement from Evelyn had blossomed into something neither of them had expected. They found themselves spending more time together, not out of obligation, but out of genuine desire. Emma had never imagined that she could form such a bond with someone from such a different world. Liam, on the other hand, found himself discovering new sides of himself he had never explored before. Sides that were full of warmth, kindness, and vulnerability. Things he had long suppressed to meet the high expectations of his father and his business. Despite their growing bond, the outside world continued to challenge their budding relationship. Rumors about Emma and Liam spread like wildfire, especially among his colleagues and friends. Many questioned why a successful businessman like Liam would be spending so much time with someone from such a modest background. The pressure was mounting, and Emma could feel it, but she refused to let it break what they had built. She had always believed in the power of love and kindness, and she wasn't about to let anyone's opinions tear that down. One evening, after a particularly long day of charity work, Emma and Liam found themselves sitting on a park bench, the sun slowly sinking behind the trees. The park was quiet save for the occasional chirp of birds and the rustle of leaves in the gentle breeze. It was their favorite spot, the place where they had shared their first real conversation. The same park where Liam had opened up to her about his struggles with his father's expectations. Emma couldn't help but smile as she looked at him, his usually stiff demeanor softened by the calmness of the evening. "We've come a long way, haven't we?" Emma said softly, her voice filled with a sense of wonder. "I never imagined I'd be here with you." Liam turned to her, a soft smile playing at the corners of his lips. "Me neither," he said quietly. "But I'm glad we are." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, each lost in their thoughts. Emma looked at the ground, her mind racing. There was something she had been thinking about for days now, something she needed to say, but she wasn't sure how Liam would react. She had come to realize that she had feelings for him, real feelings, the kind that went beyond friendship, beyond gratitude for his mother's kindness. But she didn't want to rush things, especially when so much was still uncertain. Finally, Liam spoke, breaking the silence. "Emma, I've been thinking about a lot of things, about my life, my choices, and about you." Emma looked up at him, her heart skipping a beat. "What do you mean?" "I mean," Liam began, his voice steady but full of emotion, "I've spent so much of my life focused on the wrong things. Work, success, meeting expectations. But when I'm with you, everything feels different. You've made me realize what really matters." Emma felt a lump form in her throat. She had no idea where this conversation was going, but the sincerity in Liam's eyes told her that something big was about to happen. "I've been trying to understand my feelings for you," Liam continued, his hand reaching out to take hers. "And the more I think about it, the more I realize that I can't imagine my life without you in it." Emma's breath caught in her throat. Her heart was pounding in her chest, and she could barely believe what she was hearing. "Liam," she whispered, her voice shaking. He looked at her, his eyes filled with a mixture of hope and uncertainty. "Emma, I know this might seem sudden and I don't know what the future holds for us, but I do know that I want to be with you. For everything you've done for me, for the way you've changed me, and for the love and kindness you've shown me. I want to spend the rest of my life with you." Emma's eyes filled with tears and she squeezed his hand, unable to find the words to express what she was feeling. She had never imagined this would happen, this connection, this love. But here it was, right in front of her, unfolding in the most beautiful way. "Liam, she started, but her voice faltered. She didn't need to say anything more. Liam understood. He took a deep breath, then without warning he got down on one knee in front of her, his hand still holding hers. Emma gasped, her hand flying to her mouth in shock. Liam smiled up at her, his eyes filled with a kind of determination she hadn't seen before. "Emma Parker," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "Will you marry me? Will you be my partner, my family, for the rest of our lives?" The world seemed to stand still for a moment. Emma couldn't believe what was happening. This wasn't a dream. This was real. Her heart was racing, and her mind was overwhelmed with emotions. All the doubts, all the fears, all the challenges they had faced, they didn't matter anymore. All that mattered was that Liam, the man who had once been so distant and guarded, was now offering her everything. Yes, Emma whispered, her voice filled with emotion. Yes, Liam, I will marry you. A wave of relief and joy washed over Liam's face as he stood up, pulling her into a tight embrace. They both laughed, their hearts overflowing with happiness. It wasn't going to be easy, but they knew they could face whatever came their way. Together. As they stood there, in the quiet park holding each other, the world around them seemed to fade away. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Emma and Liam had found something rare and beautiful in each other, a love that had been forged through kindness, patience, and a willingness to open their hearts to the unexpected. And in that moment, they both knew that this was only the beginning of a new chapter in their lives, a chapter that would be filled with love, growth, and endless possibilities.